Sandra, could I ask you to get the people on your panel, KK, Fabrice, Christopher, and Giok Seng, just to wander over here. And while that's going on, so our next session is the first panel, Unlocking Bankable Bioenergy, Turning Vision into Investment Reality Across Industries, from aviation to maritime and beyond. So I'd like to call up people in order because we have a seating order. Is the seating order going to come up, please? Terrific. So, Mr. K.K Ralhan, can I call you to the stage to sit on the farthest end? Sorry, I know getting the oldest bloke to walk the furthest is very unfair. I'm sorry, KK. Right down the end. Okay. Then it will be Christopher Ong. Christopher, could you come up? And I should introduce you. KK is the Group Chairman of Kaltimex, an energy producer in Indonesia. Christopher is the SVP and Managing Director of DHL Express. Next is Fabrice Espinosa, who's the founder and CEO of Asia Sustainable Aviation Fuel Association. And then finally, Mr. Giok Seng, Executive Director, Asia Pacific Natural Gas Vehicles Association, ANGVA. And then I'm handing over to my friend Sandra Seah, who we...
Thanks very much, Steve. So, hello everyone. After that exciting flight by Malaysia, now we have panel one. Thanks everyone for, staying on. It's going to be a very interesting panel. So you would have read the synopsis. This will be a panel on turning bioenergy projects into reality. And I'm very honored to be your moderator, yes, as we are going to be exploring the strategies and ideas in bioenergy to move from blueprint to bold action and success. So we are going to have a very robust discussion, and my panelists here, I'm going to not be able to do justice to all their credentials and their experience. So I'll just very quickly go through all of them again. So KK there, you can see, is the group chairman of Kaltimex Energy. Kaltimex is now driving renewable energy initiatives by integrating advanced technologies like waste to fuel and liquid biomethane gas from agricultural waste. It is also advancing algae-based omega-3 DHA oil. We spoke about that production using patented Japanese biotech. And then we have Chris Ong, who is no newcomer to this scene. Everyone would have seen him. He's the SVP and Managing Director of DHL. DHL, of course, we all use DHL, is a global leader in the logistics industry and is driving the transformation of logistics by identifying, and I really like this, co-creating new creations which are beneficial to DHL's customers. So if you read DHL's logistics trend radar, which is a very, very good publication, it's clear that DHL places its customer at the center of every action and aims for supply chain excellence that is global, resilient, and sustainable. Then we have Fabrice. Fabrice is the founder and CEO of ASAFA. I just learned how to say this acronym correctly, right? And ASAFA is the Asia Sustainable Aviation Fuel Association, which is quite a mouthful. That's why we need acronyms. So ASAFA's mission is to accelerate the adoption of SAFs to enable the deep decarbonization of aviation across Asia. And we have Mr. Lee here, Giok Seng, Mr. Lee Giok Seng. He is the Executive Director of ANGVA, another acronym. ANGVA stands for Asia Pacific Natural Gas Vehicles Association. What a mouthful. Right, ANGVA seeks to promote cleaner and sustainable mobility solutions through natural gas adoption for vehicles and transport sector across APAC region, So the hard work is done, introducing everybody. Now on to the fun. You would have read the synopsis. So we are going to, explore the question that we have about how to turn, our projects and exciting, I guess, potential projects into reality. And we'll start with a question on market dynamics. So, to all the panelists, please jump in. The bioenergy market appear to be driven by the growth in renewable energy demand and concerns over energy security and environmental impact. So what are you seeing as the key drivers and trends in this market? So just drawing on your experience. Maybe I'll invite KK to start first, although you're furthest from me.
Yeah, start with me. Thank you very much. Sandra, first of all, let me thank Seah for organizing the first time this particular bioenergy field. I think it's very encouraging. And second, thanks to my friend Steve, that he has taken all that initiative to co-chair and to promulgate this particular field. Just to your question on the market and what probably the challenges are, I think as the previous speaker has mentioned, the challenges which are there and the opportunities which are there. I think biogas, biomethane, bio-CNG, bio-LNG, or what you talk about that from the municipal solid waste to the renewable fuel, where I'm active, as well as from waste plastic, which is the circular plastic, to the pyrolysis oil, that where I'm active. And you mentioned very kindly about a very first time in the world which we are going to produce, to use the pome as a medium to produce the DHA oil, which is very different. The idea is basically to bring back the respect to the palm oil industry, which you see the various in the Western world. The palm oil is scorned upon because of the deforestation and whatever you call that. But I think market-wise, it's very encouraging. It will have a tremendous potential, but the challenges would be in terms of the feedstock, because once the people know the feedstock is in demand, then they tend to hold it. And of course, the offtake agreements are very important as well. And if you have these two things, I think technology-wise, there's not going to be an issue. But these two things, and plus the financing part of that as well. I think I would have loved to see a banker on the panel as well, but I can understand that those challenges. But I think in overall, the market remains very bright, and I think we will, as the industry champions, leaders, or whatever you call, we will overcome that as we go forward. Thank you.
It is true. So the monetization of biogenic CO2 credits is indeed, a very important topic. So Fabrice, for yourself, what are some of the market drivers that you are seeing in your role?
Thank you, Sandra, and very, very pleased to be here for this first bioenergy aspects. It's a very strong message also sent during the SU week that things are moving, the needle is moving. In terms of trends, I will say that what's driving Asia Pacific are a bit different than the rest of the world. We are unique, so good to be unique. I think when we look at the last year and a half, we've seen a structural change into the narrative for bioenergy, for aviation and maritime in the region. What used to be framed more like a climate dynamic with the success we knew, has been more focusing now on two main trends that I will mention, a third one also, and I will go to my neighbor here. But let's say the first one is energy security.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, we have to understand that 70% of refined fuel is importing into Asia. All right. Asia is not producing it, and if you look at jet fuel, it's even higher. It's 85%. So taking that into account, I think all governments in the region have realized that with the abundant biomass available, there are some opportunities to produce your own fuels, biofuels for both aviation and shipping industries. So I think that's the main driver for me. A second one that's happening in Singapore, we hope it's going to be developed more across Asia, is the carbon policy and the carbon market. You look at what's happening in the aviation sector, ICAO, so the United Nations Organization for Aviation, so civil aviation, has put in place a framework called CORSIA, which is forcing from 2027 all the airlines members of the countries that have signed that agreement to offset their CO2 emission beyond 2019 level. So to make it quick, basically, you are required, if you're an airlines, to offset your higher emissions now while traveling. But you can do it with different options, right? One of them being carbon offsetting, which is, we all know, significantly cheaper than biofuels. But there are also some good opportunities with biofuels, and by putting these carbon markets in the region, we believe it's going to support also this expansion. And the last pillar, which is also something very important and very interesting, and that was far below the levels of what we saw in the Western world, but are now changing, is the corporate demand. And I think Chris, on my side with DHL, is a very good example, so I will let him handle that question, but I think that's a very important driver, because at the passenger level, at the personal level, we don't see any traction for people to pay more for to fly on biofuels or to be on biofuels, but at the corporate level is very different.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So Chris, you have been named. You have no choice but to answer that.
Yeah, so, I mean, of course, as an off-taker, last year, for example, as a group, we purchased about 74,000 tons of SAF, and we are the third largest buyer in terms of volume, but in terms of percentage of fuel blend, we're over 3%, which puts us right up there as one of the most prolific users of SAF in the world right now. And as what Fabrice was saying, one of the reasons why we are purchasing this, of course, is for our own sustainability commitments, but very interestingly, when we introduced a product called Go Green Plus, which is a service that our customers can opt into to basically purchase SAF credits directly from us. And it isn't from some other third party, or it's basically the SAF that we buy. And we're basically on-selling those credits to some of these customers. We've seen in the last 18 months, 300,000 customers opting in for Go Green Plus, and they have actually been using that in their reporting and also, of course, in their commitments to SBTI, Science-Based Target Initiative. Many of the customers are doing that. But the most interesting thing for me was that we had always thought it'd be the large MNCs, the large companies around the world with commitments that will buy into this. The vast majority are actually SMEs. And that completely surprised us, because we realized that these SMEs were leveraging on this to differentiate themselves from their competition. So especially now, with the volatility of tariffs, a lot of smaller customers have had to pivot away from the US into other markets, with Europe being a very a very attractive location for them. And their customers in Europe require their suppliers to comply with much more stringent sustainability requirements. And so if these SMEs want to sell into Europe, they have to be able to show and prove their sustainability credentials. And one of them will be leveraging on a partner like DHL, who is using sustainable aviation fuel, but for them also then leveraging on the SAF credits. So we are starting to see quite a lot of this, and the momentum is building. Because the more tariffs that are kicking in, the more places they need to look for alternative markets. And it's a really interesting time for us, because it's, while yes, it is more costly, the cost of insetting, using SAF to inset the carbon, is much higher than offsetting, right? Offsetting. But people are starting to understand the nuance in terms of the difference between insetting and offsetting. And as a result, we are actually seeing, we're the only ones in the market that can sell this credit easily to our customers, which is why we're seeing a lot of traction on that.
I love it. More power to the consumer, actually. So now I'm going to move to you, Mr. Lee. In terms of risk management, we are going to cover, various areas. But what are the mechanisms that you are seeing, rather, that can be used to strengthen project economics and reduce financing risks, particularly when you think that there are varying demand profiles and technical specifications required by each sector? You can talk about your sector, which is the vehicles, because we have got the planes here already.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. It's I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer that because I'm not from the project developer or the
Sure.
fund owner.
But in
I
terms
think,
of risk management generally,
in terms of
how can you de-risk a
you
project?
de-risk, it's more like you have to find the off-taker. That's the most important thing. If you have off-taker for your bio-CNG, bio-LNG, or your SAF, and the off-taker will have a certain price that they are willing to buy. So you make it too expensive, they don't want too cheap, maybe you can't produce it. So in the end, if you have a plan maybe to de-risk, you might have to have a bio-refinery. You produce bio-CNG, you produce bio-LNG, and you produce SAF, because they all come from the same feedstock.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but then you also have to look for who is the most likely customer off-taker you have. Right now, from the sector that I'm coming from, that is the land transport.
Okay.
It's the most difficult to abate sector, if you all agree.
Yes.
Especially for the heavy-duty vehicles. For passenger car, you can move to electric vehicle, that's for sure. But for heavy-duty car, heavy-duty trucks, it's very difficult. In fact, even DHL, you have heavy-duty trucks.
Yeah,
that you move.
no, in fact, we use a lot of, in Europe, we use a lot of HVO. So we are basically leveraging on HVO for our land transport, specifically in Europe.
And you also have trucks that run on natural gas, which is fossil natural gas that you can transit to bio-CNG or bio-LNG without having to change the infrastructure, the vehicles and all. It's just a drop in fuel.
Yes.
The only problem is that the price is not right because it's very expensive now to sell bio-CNG or bio-LNG compared to the fossil diesel fuel, which unfortunately in this part of the world is subsidized. Yeah. So it makes it less economical or less viable for the people who produce this fuel, and the risk is very high. So in the end, it's also good now that we are into decarbonizations, all these things, because somebody need to give the value to the fuel, such as bio-CNG, bio-LNG. Previously, we sell natural gas as a low carbon fuel, but as a cheap fuel.
Yes.
So because it's cheap, you have to sell cheaper than subsidized diesel. It becomes so cheap, the oil and gas company that sell it cannot make money, no business case. So that's why you see that the ANGVA sectors is not moving. In fact, in Malaysia, unfortunately, it's banned. Singapore abandoned it in 2012. Malaysia, by July this year, no more NGV. Thailand, 300,000 NGV still running, but slowing down. Now, if we can just transit this into bio-CNG or bio-LNG, every cubic meter methane or fossil fuels, fossil CNG that you replace is decarbonization, immediate. Without having to wait for the infrastructure, we are having to wait for all those things to come in place. So you can do it immediately. The question is, how do you make it commercially viable for the project developer and all these things?
That's why we need a lot of policymakers also in this room. I'm going to come to you soon, KK, but before that, I think, Chris, as a seasoned off-taker of very diversified off-take agreements, how would DHL consider the major area of risks, and how do you mitigate those? What are the major areas?
I mean, clearly, for us, one of the key concerns is counterparty risk, right? If you get into a contract with a major supplier, but they aren't able to fulfill their commitments, because we have made commitments publicly in terms of how much fuel we'll be purchasing, the amount of carbon abatement that we expect to achieve. So we must, get the delivery of that fuel that we purchase. So a lot of work goes into, of course, the due diligence to ensure that the supplier has the right access to feedstock. We talked about that just now, right? The need for the access to feedstock. Of course, we need to check that this is not a fly-by-night, type of supplier and so on. So I think when we do our due diligence, if you look at the contracts we've signed for SAF, generally it's been a couple of oil majors, the likes of BP, Shell. But recently we've of course gone with Neste, which is of course also a Finnish oil company. Yeah, but we are starting to look at alternative sources. But the most important thing, like I said, is really our understanding of, look, if we commit, do that demand signaling, to tell the supplier, look, we will offtake this amount. A lot of it will go into the due diligence to ensure that we don't have this counterparty risk, right, to fulfill those requirements.
I think that you do need to have very mature and resilient supply chains, for this area. So it's not difficult. I think it's difficult because the younger players are always struggling to get there. So thanks for your insights. And KK, as you are developing all these new technologies, what are you doing to strengthen your project economics?
I think, Sandra, I'm glad that I must tell Chris that one of the suppliers is sitting next to him. So
Let's chat after this, right?
in due course, certainly we will do that. Unfortunately or fortunately, the challenges remain, as I said. The technologies are there and upcoming, and they are continuously being refined as well. And we are developing few projects from municipal solid waste to renewable fuel. And the project studies, the feasibility studies are being completed. And also from the plastic, the waste plastic, which is a menace. And as you know, that there is an alliance called as the End of Plastic Alliance, and where our friend Ted Toth has become the vice president. And it's very encouraging to see that there are those kind of organizations which are coming up. And we have taken upon ourselves that we want to produce a containerized pyrolysis set, which we have a Norwegian technology. It's a patented technology. And we will be producing the pyrolysis oil for the marine fuel. We are not talking about the marine fuel. That's where we will want to enter that. And normally, that from the long hydrocarbon chains, you've got to shorten it. And you've got to do what you call as the hydro treatment, HDT, which is basically to remove the oxygen, nitrogen, and chlorine part of the, which is there in the pyrolysis oil. And we have got all those technologies which we are going to do with the help of Japan, Korea, and so on and so forth, and from Norway as well. So I think we have the technologies, and due course, we are very keen to put our money where the mouth is, and we are going to develop all these things so that we are in a better position to catch the market potential, which is going to be more powerful in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing your insights. So I'm now going to jump to the financing structure, which is quite a difficult area to approach. So, based on some research, power generation, transport, and the industry today account for 86% of the total energy-related emissions in Asia. And this is, of course, a tremendous challenge, but it's also a tremendous opportunity. However, funding options for bioenergy, although we remember there's a great demand for it, appear to be very limited and stunted. So, is it true that there are very limited funding options, and what do you think would be key to securing more funding for bioenergy projects? So this hard questions falls on Fabrice as well as Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Sandra. Pleasure. So it's true, and at the same time, it's not true. All right. So yeah, I know it's an easy answer, right? The capital for bioenergy is available. In fact, it's available at different levels. It's available with big institutional financing organizations like World Bank, IFC, like ADB, Asian Development Bank, or Development Bank of Japan, or KDB as well, for example. Right? They have money. It's also available within private organizations like banks, Asian banks, European banks, US banks, right? We have, in fact, very hungry in doing some green financing on sustainable financing. The issue, because we were talking about risk management, is, and the issue with financiers is they hate risk. I mean, we all know that. So today, when you look at bioenergy, I mean, we have to bring a project to get financing support to solve some of the constraints that are somehow quite difficult to achieve at the moment. So the first one will be regulation. Do we have a stable, an existing one and a stable regulations? The second one would be about the feedstock. Do we have available feedstock, and can we ensure the traceability to make sure that it is sustainable? And the last one would be about fragmented offtake, and that's what we were just discussing, right? So do we have offtake, enough offtake, and can we secure it? And if you don't have those three topics, or so solve those three issues, then you're going to barely have some financing from any private or public financing organizations. So I think, and the association I'm representing and our members, and some of them are in the room here today or are attending the event, this is the Singapore International Energy Week. The solution, there is no one single solution, but for sure something that has to be started, because if not, it's going to be chicken and egg, and we're never going to end that, is we need policies. All right? We need policies to support the bioenergy adoption, to enforce it. So carrot, stick, we've been talking about that. And we need also policies to support how we handle the premium of those bioenergies, all right? Because if we ask for the end user to pay only, we're not going to be successful, right? And so I think that's some of the key ideas that we are pushing at our level on sustainable aviation fuels, but that's also apply on HVO, on ammonia, on hydrogen, on other solutions from bioenergy.
Yeah, Mr. Lee?
Okay. I was in this room this morning attending some financing talks, and I think looking at the similarity between green electron, you're wearing green anyway, and green molecule, it's the same, except that you look, concentration now is more on the green electron. There's so funding, so many projects, all these things, maybe because of big value projects, so it attracts a lot of banks to invest, investors. But hearing what this morning on what's available, there's even a gentleman from Climate Fund, he said, we are looking for non-bankable projects so that we can turn it into bankable later on. So I think financing is not going to be an issue. The issue is whether there's a project to start it, and also to look, there should be collaboration between the off-taker, the supplier, and the producer come together and look at what is available for this biogas or bio-CNG, bioenergy project, which is going to be very small value. If you look at a solar project, wind project, or 100 million, 50 million, maybe about 10 million, 30 million US dollars. So it's there, but I think the bank has not looked at it. The investors have not looked at it. But of course, investors will start to look at long-term offtake contracts, security of feedstock supply, and of course, there is still lack of a legal framework how to produce, and government didn't come in. So there is a lot of things yet to be done to see whether there is really no financing available. I think there's a lot. There's so many innovative, there's blended finance here. I think it shouldn't be a problem. It's just that somebody need to go and start knocking on these people. And who's going to do that? So there should be a group of people who come together, maybe the national program. But we also look at the ability of REC, right? Renewable Energy Certificates.
Yes.
If you produce green electron, you can get a certificate.
Yes.
But if you produce green molecule, you don't get anything. So there should be a framework for that also. Right. Maybe a renewable gas certificate for producing bio-CNG, biomethane, bio-LNG, something like that.
I think Asia might well develop its own standards in order to facilitate trading, and I think that would be very interesting for all of us.
Comment on that,
Yes.
because I think there is now, like Dato' Leong said, people going around looking for bio-LNG in Malaysia, Indonesia, but this is, it have to be ISCC EU compliance. You know how complex and difficult it is? It increased the price.
Yes.
But why are we looking at that when we need to decarbonize our own emission?
True.
So maybe we should have an ASEAN.
Well, this forum is a perfect place for all of us to
so that we don't
bounce
have
around
to,
the
we
idea.
can start this immediately. Don't have to look at what I need to do to comply to ICC EU, very complex.
It's true.
Have ASEAN.
Yeah. So as a lawyer, I can say that the legal regime has always followed the commercialities, of projects. So as and when projects are taking place, I think the legal framework will get framed. So it's quite easy in that sense. For me personally, on this topic, I feel that the is very capital intensive in order to have the infrastructure to harness bioenergy on a widespread scale. And to me, that is one of the financing issues, but it will be resolved if we can find, very convincing use, convincing and consistent use of bioenergy in certain specific areas, maybe not all, but that would be very helpful. Yes, Fabrice.
Maybe just to add something, because it's very capital intensive, then also we cannot only focus on domestic markets. Exactly. Because all domestic markets in the region, maybe except China, potentially India, but all of the other ones are too small to handle such industry, right, domestically.
Yeah.
So we really need to, at least at the regional scales, and again, that's what we push at the association, but to align at the regional scales on those standards, on those policies. So we make sure that when we produce anywhere in Asia Pacific, we can sell it into Asia Pacific, and we can can have the credit recognized, we can have the certification aligned, and so forth and so forth. And I think that's very important, because domestic markets, that's not going to work, and we're gonna lose it.
Right.
No, and I was going to go back to, this topic, because we're talking right now really about producers, off-takers, but I represent the consumer. In that sense that, we are starting to see more and more consumers actually looking to see how they can participate in this decarbonization journey. And a lot of times, companies are looking at how much is it going to cost for me to comply? And they forget that there are opportunities. I am speaking as an off-taker who services consumers. And the fact is, what we have seen is that companies that are more sustainable tend to be able to sell at a little higher price, or they get opportunities that they would never ever have had if they were not so sustainable. So a story I love to tell is about Coldplay. Now, did anyone here go to the Coldplay concerts maybe a couple of years ago? Well, yeah, for those of you who went, I'm sure you have seen that DHL was the official logistics partner for Coldplay, and they did a lot of marketing around how we partnered with them to be, to make sure that their tour was the most sustainable ever. Because Chris Martin, a number of years ago, committed never to go touring globally again until they could reduce their carbon emissions by 50%. So he lived up to that commitment. And when a few years ago in 2022, when they heard that DHL was one of the largest buyers of SAF in the world, they actually approached us just to buy our SAF, because they wanted the carbon credits, yeah? But I must credit my marketing guys who are smart enough to say, no, we don't want to just sell the credits, we want to partner with you. And actually they resisted. They didn't want a logistics partner. They were afraid that we will be named a greenwasher, right? So we actually spent the time to show them that we started this green journey 15 years ago in 2009, right, or more. About 15 years ago, 2009. And we could show them our whole portfolio of carbon neutral buildings, electrified fleet, biodiesel trucks, and SAF. So we've been doing this for quite a while. And ultimately they got convinced, and they said, yes, we will partner with you. And for the last 3 years, they just concluded their tour, their Museum of the Spheres tour in London recently. And over the last 3 years, across the world, we've been able to support this whole journey. And if you think about it, this opportunity would never ever have been presented to us if not for the fact that we were so green. And for me personally, other than having opportunities to go to the concerts, right, the best part,
That's a brag.
yeah. The best part of this whole story is that my daughter went to the concert. Okay, she got it on her own, right? And she went everything, and she came back that night and said to me, "Dad, I'm proud of you," right? And for a teenage daughter to say that to an old man, that really made my
I think
year.
that deserves an
Okay,
applause.
yeah, my year.
For DHL.
Sandra, just to add a little bit, which Chris may not know himself, that there is a a company which is a non-profit company here in Singapore, which is called as Green Freight Asia. And there are 3 directors in that, and yours truly, of course, CEO and the director. There's one director of DHL who's based in Thailand, and there's one from UPS, and there are a lot of those, the logistics companies are there, UPS and FedEx and so on and so forth, and shipping companies are also there, and they're doing exactly the same thing, finding the green path for their freight things. So this is just in support of what DHL said. So I thought I must add that. Thank you.
So don't forget that there are opportunities. We keep talking about
that's right,
how
the challenges.
costly and challenges it is, but on the flip side, there are opportunities. And we have more and more customers telling us stories about that they have to be competitive. Generally, you can't be that you are 50% more expensive than anybody else and still expect to win the business. But if you are within like a 10 or 15% margin of the competitor and you can prove that you're more sustainable, we've seen more and more customers actually winning RFQs as a result of that.
Yeah. So my comment to that is, for example, if I'm talking about using green hydrogen, you know, as opposed to using grid-fired power from oil and gas, the cost of electricity is so low in Singapore. Why would you use something so expensive like green hydrogen, right? But for bioenergy, it's a different story, because very compellingly we can say we are turning waste into treasure. We are using the waste that you don't want and giving you a great solution. So I really like this area, and I'm sure all of you are convinced. So, I mean, this is just going to move nicely into the technology and sustainability aspect of the panel. I have 11 minutes, so I must cover this aspect because it's so important. And I'm going to ask, you know, maybe Chris, you start again. Okay, and then KK and Fabrice can jump in. That there is, what role does technology, processing technology, play in all these strategic decisions to either scale or for finances to come to you and say, hey, I want to finance?
I guess, look, technology, of course, when you're able to improve the yield, based from the same, you know, our previous speaker mentioned, right? 1,000 tons of used cooking oil doesn't produce 1,000 tons of SAF, right? But if you're able to improve the yield, of course, the unit costs of the SAF will come down. But of course, okay, this is a bio discussion, but you know, I have to bring in power to liquid, right? Which is another form of technology that takes, you know, green energy and recombines carbon dioxide and water into sustainable aviation fuel, right? We're just reversing the combustion process using green energy. So if we are able to do that, then the discussion about feedstock becomes less, right? Because you're just sucking the carbon dioxide out of the air. Yeah? You're taking the problem and making a solution out of it. But there is enough, you know, along the journey, whether it's alcohol to jet, whether it's, right now HEFA and so on. The fact is, as technology evolves and improves, clearly I do expect economies of scale. I do expect to be able to have more people buy in and use, right, these technologies in order to produce the demand that's required. There just isn't, right now globally, for example, for SAF, 1.5 million tons globally. By next year, probably it gets up to about 2 plus million, but still that's just a drop. Singapore, Changi Airport alone consumes 7 million tons a year. One airport in tiny Singapore. You know, there's just not enough of it going around. And so we really need the technology to drive the yields and eventually the economies of scale.
So, KK, what technology is being used to scale?
I think technology adds value. People forget that. And especially the bankers. In my opinion, it's a work in progress still. And the efficiency which Chris was saying is going to be improved as we go forward. But I think whatever we have at this point in time, whether you take it from municipal solid waste to renewable fuel, or you take from plastic to pyrolysis oil, or you take, which I mentioned, from the POME to DHA oil, which is omega-3 oil. I mean, these are the emerging technologies which will certainly improve as we go forward. I think SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, will definitely, by virtue of the volume which it has, that it will be more attractive, and people like Neste are in the forefront. But I think the other technologies which are coming up for the transportation and for the power sector, which produces pollution up to 86%, as we saw in one of the panels, I think those can be negated with some of these technologies which I mentioned, where the renewable fuel will be offsetting it, and it can be used that if the transportation sector is taken care of, and the bio-LNG and bio-CNG, and if that countries like Indonesia, Malaysia is doing quite a bit, but if Indonesia has to step up, and Thailand is doing also pretty well with its very small total production capacity. But I'm very optimistic, if you ask me, because we are the player, we know we are taking risk in that.
Yes.
But my only submission is that the bank should also step in, and they must honor that, these technologies are going to be tried and tested. And they can't say, Mr. Chris, Mr. Ralhan, that you show me you have put up the 10 projects and then we will finance you. You know, that's not the game plan you have. But I think overall, I remain very optimistic that bioenergy is the future of our planet.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
And it's also a place where, you know, you have room to play because innovative biotechnology, bioenergy technologies and innovations, this is a place which is rife, more than in solar, more than in any other field. So everyone here, just be heartened. Okay, we have 6 minutes, so I'm going to go down exactly this way. I want a success story. I want to end on an optimistic note. So I would like to invite my panelists to, you know, each share a success story in this area, and we should give everybody hope. And we'll all walk out enthused and look for finances for this interesting sector. So, Celine.
Success story. I think as far as a country is concerned, there was India, a very good example of a very good framework policy by the government to promote the use of, they call it compressed biogas, which is bio-CNG. They have this, they call it SATAT program, sustainable alternative towards affordable transport program, where they're targeting 5,000 bio-CNG plants, and the government give all the incentive and help them, and the oil marketing companies is guaranteed to buy whatever bio-CNG you produce. Right. That is as a country. As a project, I think in Thailand, there is a project where they produce biomethane and they send it to a CNG station to replace the fossil fuel without any government, but that is a niche case where you have to transport the fossil natural gas from like 500, 600 kilometers away. Transportation cost very high, whereas the palm oil mill is just about 50 to 100 kilometers away. So you reduce the transportation cost, make it commercially viable. But if you have a carbon credit or something like that, it may be more viable. Maybe more plants can produce bio-CNG. And also, some palm oil plantation in Indonesia is producing their own biomethane to fuel their own diesel trucks, which they bought natural gas trucks. And they found they can save a lot of money. So these are the success stories, which if we have additional income for them or for the producer, maybe we can have a more widespread use of the fuel. But before that, can I just counter a bit what Fabrice was saying about export market and domestic market? I think 3 reasons you give why we should go into bio is the decarbonization, which is we have to help our country to meet the target of carbon neutral by 2030, net zero by 2050, 2060. So we have to decarbonize our own. So we have to produce it for our own use first. And then the second one is
energy security.
Energy security, which you don't want to export because you want to use for yourself. And then third one is you want to develop your circular economy, help your own. And you want to do it fast. Right. You don't have to wait until you can meet all those international certifications before you can sell. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. So, Fabrice, a success story. You don't have to counter what Mr. Lee says.
Okay, no, I will mention the beginning of a success story then.
Yes.
Because we're still a long way to go, and this is for aviation, and I hope that shipping and plastic recycling will follow the lead as well with international regulations. But I think in aviation we have an international framework at the UN level. We are also happy because when we had that idea of launching our association about 18 months ago, you barely had one single government in the region who was interested in SAF, and now you have more and more going and moving in the direction with policies. So that's very supportive, and that's also give a right direction and positive trends to all the ecosystem around bioenergy and biofuels. I said the beginning because we're still a long way to go, and we need to unify all those approaches at the regional level. We need to make sure that we are compliant with international regulations, because we don't want also to keep only this SAF produced in the region, because we want to sell it outside of the region as well, right? I mean, a lot of US, Europe, whatever, we need to feed them as well. And we have a good example with Chris over there. But I think that drive is there. People are moving, money is coming, policies are coming as well, and the example of that, within less than a year, ASAFA has now 31 members, We are able to talk and gather more than 10 countries from Asia Pacific soon in Singapore. I think that's also showing that understanding of the regional approach. Yeah, that's going to be my successor.
We've got a big role to persuade more policyholders to do that, yeah.
Okay, and I think for us, what really excited us recently was, of course, we signed with Neste a 9.5 million litre contract for SAF uplift out of Changi Airport, and that's the largest SAF deal in Asia to date. Nobody's bought more SAF than we have, and even just a couple of weeks before that, we signed a 7.2 million litre deal with Cosmo up in Japan. And the interesting thing for me is that because of all of these commitments, now it's not cheap. All of you know SAF is not cheap. But the fact that we signed such large contracts, it has garnered a huge amount of attention. And so if you ever now go to Google and just look about logistics and sustainability, DHL always pops up. None of our competition, nobody shows up, right, when it comes to this area of sustainability. And I think that recognition has allowed us to really differentiate ourselves. So the other thing that our customers tell us is that we're very expensive, right? But they still keep coming back because they know that
it's a premium service.
Yeah, the service levels are great and we're more sustainable than anybody else. So anyone who wants to associate with that branding of being sustainable and high quality, they come to us.
Thank you.
I think
KK.
tremendous potential. My eye is on the timing as well.
No, you have time.
Tremendous potential, but challenges remain. And I think one aspect which we haven't covered is the legal and the policy framework of the various countries. I think that needs to be addressed. I do not know if that can be harmonized so that the trade becomes very easy between the ASEAN countries, right? We are under the ASEAN umbrella. But I think I'm very optimistic and positive. And thanks to Seah once again for organizing this BioEnergy, and to my friend, Steve. Thank you very much, Sandra.
Right. So thank you everyone for your kind attention. Very many thanks to my panelists. I hope that was a fun and insightful session. And and it's over. So thank you very much again. Thank you. No time for questions.
Green molecule in the center, please. There's going to be a few minutes as we change the stage, so if you want to duck out for a pit stop or get a glass of water, might be a good time now.